Karlos Nasar just snatched 185 kilos, and then he clean and jerked 230 kilos in competition. These are enormous unofficial world records. Let's watch them now, and then let's talk about exactly what they mean compared to the other athletes. So the 185, I mean, that is 3 kilos over Jason Lopez's world record of 182. His 230 is 6 kilos over his own world record of 224. And it's a 415 total, which is 11 kilos over his own world record of 404, which was an 8 kilo world record over the previous world record of 396. You've got all of the top 89s in the world who are totaling in the 380s. Then you've got a couple of guys who've made it into the 390s, the heaviest of which was 396 when Liti had that just breakout performance, the 180-216 at the Asian Champs. And then you've got from 396 all the way up to 415 Karlos Nasar. Now, he did weigh 93.9, so he was very heavy because, you know, he's an 89 and he's not even far off what a 96 is actually weighing here. Of course, he is going to be competing in the 89 kilo category at the World Championships, but let's just, can we just take another look at this together? Yeah, I mean, that snatch doesn't even look, it doesn't even look that challenging. Like, we've seen him try harder and fight harder for snatches. If you compare that to that 180 that he did in the training hall in Thailand, in Phuket in April, and then the 180 that he did at the Olympics, which we can't show here, but like all of those sort of 180, 181 snatches, that is outrageous. Let's go to the clean and jerk now. Yeah, he just gets his knees way under the bar. His explosion is enormous. There's probably a little bit less of a lean back than we used to see from him, and more of a vertical finish there as well. He's actually wearing our new knee sleeves and belt, unbranded at the moment because he's been trying a few out, but that's what he's got on there. I mean, that jerk again is just, it's perfection. So let's talk about how this really compares to some of these other athletes. The most similar body weight recent-ish lifter, and by recent I'm talking about 21st century, I think has got to be Ilya Ilyin. The comparison that I want to make a point of before people get too carried away, 2012 Olympic Games, London, Ilya in the 94s, so Karlos here weighing 93.9. In the 94s, Ilya did 185 snatch, 233 world record clean jerk. That's a 418 total. He was of course later disqualified, and Ilya was cutting from sort of 99, 98 at the time, his body weight, whereas Karlos, you know, he probably ate loads full of water. If you'd have asked him even within 24 hours to cut, you probably could have cut 3 kilos. So it's probably not quite an accurate comparison, but that's worth mentioning. I also just want to compare him to the absolute all-time best. So I'm talking about the best 90 kilo weightlifters from basically the 80s and into the 90s, just to see how he compares on that level. Now, all of the information I'm going to go through here is taken from The Greatest Weightlifters of All Time, Volume 1, which is a book that I wrote a few years ago, counts down all of the greatest weightlifters ever, their stories, best competition stats, photos, that sort of stuff. It's available at weightliftinghouse.com on our Black Friday sale. Let's start with Kaki Kakishvili. He's the number 17 Sinclair of all time. At a body weight of 89.25, he did a 177.5 kilo snatch, 7.5 less than Karlos, and a 235 kilo clean and jerk, 5 kilos more. That's a 412.5 kilo total. He did that in 1992. The story behind that is unbelievable. He was competing for the unified team as the Soviet Union had collapsed. Vasily Alexiev, the big super who you all know, he was the coach of Kaki and another athlete who was competing in the unified team who was actually Russian, whereas Kaki was Georgian and later competed for Greece. Alexiev didn't want Kaki to win, so he withheld Kaki's attempts that Kaki wanted to take to make sure that his Russian athlete would win. Then on the final attempt he said, okay Kaki, you can go and take what you want. The floor is yours. Kaki said 235 and he made it and he won and he became Olympic champion, the first of his 3 Olympic gold medals. It's also the heaviest over body weight clean and jerk ever. It's 140.75 kilos above his own personal weight that he left overhead. That's never been done before. Next off, number 12 Sinclair of all time, Ivan Shakarov, another Bulgarian this time, as a 90 kilo weightlifter, 187.5, 230. That's a 417.5 kilo total. He did that in 1988. A lot of these competitions you're going to realize were in 1988 or 1984 at the Friendship Cup in Varna. It was a different time. There was really no testing. A lot of athletes were banned. This comparison that I'm doing now is not fair. The testing standards of today compared to then are so different. Really, the best way to look at it is by outlier. Naeem was an outlier amongst these athletes. Karlos is an outlier amongst the athletes of today. Then we have Anatoly Kropati, one of my favorite 90 kilo weightlifters, Soviet Union / Kazakh. He's the number 7 Sinclair of all time, 185, 235. So basically the same as Karlos just did, plus an extra 5 kilos in the clean and jerk, 420 total. He did that in 1988 also. Then we have Blagojev, who you all probably know, the greatest snatcher of all time. I got to meet him last year in Bulgaria. He's a world number 6 by Sinclair, 195.5 snatch. I mean, you just can't even wrap your head around that. That's more than 10 kilos over what Karlos just did. And a 225 clean and jerk, not a bad clean and jerk, 420.5. And then finally, the most, what would you call it? It's like the bottom of the iceberg. It's an athlete that basically nobody knows about. Viktor Solodov from the Soviet Union. In 1984 at the Friendship Cup in Varna, as a 90 kilo weightlifter, he snatched 190 and he clean and jerked 233. Just imagine that, the third highest Sinclair of all time. Karlos is a little bit behind that, but he's in a different era. Also, within about 30 minutes of this competition, Karlos sent a video to me about the upcoming World Championships based on this performance. So stick around because I will get to that video. Also, I can tell you what he lifted because he sent me a message with his attempt selection, so we can check that out as well before we get to this video that he sent. So snatch 165, 175, 185. In the clean and jerk, 205 opener, 215 second attempt, then he jumped 15 kilos to 230. I just got to watch this 230 again. So this 230, I mean, it's just that because we've seen him in the past, cleaning 230 and missing the jerk on social media, and he told me that he'd made 236 before in training, and I never really knew whether to believe him or not. He's maintained the same number every time I've asked. That jerk, I mean, look at this. The speed of that lift, it's unbelievable. Let's take a look at the video that he sent to me.
Bahrain start Karlos Nasar masterclass.
So basically he's saying that he's going to put on an absolute masterclass for the rest of the 89 kilo weightlifters at Worlds. My Worlds predictions for Karlos, I don't think he's going to do 230, and the 185 is possible. I think the most likely is 183, 225, 408, and I have a rationale behind them all. World record snatch by a kilo, world record clean and jerk by a kilo, world record total by 4 kilos, and the number 1 Sinclair over the last few years. It moves him ahead of Rizky Jinincia, who had 491 Sinclair based on his 365 total in Thailand. And Karlos is aware of that, was upset about that when I was over there in Bulgaria and wanted to reclaim that number 1 Sinclair spot. So this total 408 would do it by 1 Sinclair point. Also, you can watch the World Championships 2024 IWF World Champs at Weightlifting House TV. Having dominated the Olympics and cemented his place in history, Karlos Nasar returns to the World Championships, not just to break records, but to obliterate them.
Set a snatch world record.
And he's not alone. Olivia Reeves, fresh off her Olympic gold, is poised to become the 3rd US woman since 2019 to claim a World Championship title. China and North Korea have moved up a weight class, avoiding her completely.
Oh my goodness! 6 for 6.
After an 8-month break, Rahmat Owen Abdullah is back. The man who ruled the 73 kilo category for almost an entire Olympic cycle. His world record-breaking power was only sidelined by the performance of the decade, courtesy of his teammate Rizky Jinincia. But both men are back, and Bahrain will feel their impact. With Liu Huanhua out and a new wave of women's supers in peak form, the stage is set for the crowning of a new queen of women's weightlifting, who will rise to claim the throne. Gormanassian has his sights set on history. Once again, he's gunning for the legendary 220 kilo snatch, aiming to become only the 2nd man ever to do it. And with him competing for Bahrain, this is the moment it could all come together. The 2024 IWF World Championships, live and on demand at Weightlifting House TV, from December 6th to 15th. Tickets are now live. I'm going to be doing the commentary along with the one and only Max Ater. We're flying out there in a few days' time. We have some absolutely incredible sessions. Rahmat's going to be there, Rizky's going to be there, Karlos is going to be there, and some of the athletes that I'm also going to talk about in the next session of this Weightlifting House News Show. Also, it's Black Friday, so head to weightliftinghouse.com. I'll put a link to that down below and get discounts on everything. All of the best products in weightlifting, worn by world champions, worn by world record holders. Everything is on sale right now. Okay, so one of the athletes I want to talk about is Li Yan from China, the new super heavyweight who's going to be coming to this World Championships. Now, I've got a little summary of everything I know about Li Yan, and I want to thank Wong Ngai for sending me an email with all of this information. I couldn't have done it without that email, so shout out to them. With Li Wenwen not competing, Li Yan is going to be China's representative in this plus 87 kilo category. She's actually one of the junior lifters from China who just won the Chinese national games, and China is basically just sending juniors to this World Championship, so she's one of them. So basically, as it turns out, there are these two super heavyweights besides Li Wenwen who are actually very good. It's Li Yan and it's Sun Yongji. Now, Sun Yongji actually was probably the better of the two. At the 2023 Chinese national champs, though, she snatched 140, she clean and jerk 171, and then she went for 188. It's an unofficial world record, but she got injured. And so over the last year, Sun Yongji has basically been trying to get better. She has since competed, but just wasn't quite able to get to those numbers. I think she was around the 160 clean and jerk range. So Li Yan, who has been selected, is basically the top lifter right now. So most recently at the East Asian Championships, at her first sort of smaller international, she defeated the Koreans, Park Hye-jong and Sun Young-hee, and she did that with a 140 snatch and a 170 clean and jerk. So as she heads to this World Championship, I think we can expect a 140 kilo thereabouts snatch, which should give her a strong lead. I would have thought of a solid 10 kilos heading into clean and jerk. She's going to do at least 160, maybe 170, maybe more. So I think her battle against Sun Young-hee, Park Hye-jong, and Emily Campbell, stick around for Emily because we've got a fair bit of her big lifts to talk about. I think it's going to be a phenomenal competition. Okay, let's talk quickly about some lifts, some weightlifters doing powerlifting type movements. The first, Liu Huanhua, aka Giga Chad, the Olympic champion at 102, the reigning world champion. He just hit a 301 kilo PR clean pull. I don't know what you guys think about that. I was surprised that that was the most he'd done before, to be honest with you. It's obviously massive, it's monster, and it's not like it's a deadlift, like he is in a clean pull position, gets a little shrug at the top, but yeah, I guess I was surprised by that. I suppose it's the speed with which he can accelerate past the knee with 230 kilos, which is where he's not just world class, he's the best in the world, but yeah, 301, it was slower than I would have maybe anticipated. Next up, we have the super heavyweight from New Zealand, the one and only, the boy himself, David Liti, who just competed at a powerlifting competition. Now this is interesting because David is one of the strongest supers in the world. His force production is nuts. I mean, I've seen him doing, am I right in saying, have we seen him push press like 210? We've seen him front squat 300. He did that in Qatar, I remember. So this guy is outrageously strong. He just did a 370 kilo squat. This is like an official powerlifting competition. He's all SBD'd up. 370 back squat. That's more than I thought. I was actually extremely impressed by that. 190 bench press. That was lighter than I thought. But when you see it, he actually accelerates through the movement. I don't know, maybe the powerlifters out there, it would be good if you could actually comment and let me know what you think about this performance. But it looks like he could do what, like 210, 215, something like that. Certainly, I would have thought another 20 kilos. And then obviously, because every lift to some degree is a skill, I'm sure he could improve significantly just by practicing the bench press. He probably doesn't ever bench press. And then in the deadlift, 322.5, which is right around 700 pounds, isn't it? Again, looked very easy. I'm sure he could pull more. Yeah, pretty solid. I mean, how is that? How does that rank for powerlifters? Is that good? The squat seems very good. Also, in weightlifting news from him, he just did a double at 170 kilos in a snatch, so clearly he's in good shape. We're excited to see him in Bahrain at these World Championships, December 6th to 15th at Weightlifting House TV. Get your ticket now. Next up, we have Emily Campbell from Great Britain, the two-time Olympic medalist. 161 kilo for a jerk double. I mean, she's very strong in the jerk, very strong. She'd have made that clean at the Olympics. I think silver could have been there. And then she went on and hit 171 kilo for a single. She is so strong. Her split jerk is so good. Despite the fact, like, she's narrow, but she just, I mean, you remember in Colombia, she jerks here, and then she has to step all around, but she's so solid overhead. It's just I mean, it's a masterclass. It's unbelievable. And then the last lift before we got another interesting story. Laura Amaro, Brazil 81, 142 kilo jerk. So solid. I've always thought that Laura Amaro's jerk technique is just heavenly. Like the foot position, the back knee angle, the front knee angle, the lockout, the stability, so strong, so flawless. She's going to be at the World Championships too. Somebody who's not going to be at the World Championships, who I'm sad about, is Andreev Bozhidar. When I was in Bulgaria, I'd been told by Karlos that Bozhidar wasn't going to compete. But then he was on the preliminary list, and then he was on the final entry list. But then this news story broke, which is sad. So basically, the Olympic bronze medalist, Andreev Bozhidar, who won the bronze at the 73 kilo category in Paris, of course, he has announced his official retirement, citing frustration with the systemic issues in the Bulgarian sports funding, which I've spoken about before, the Bulgarian athletes in weightlifting not receiving money for a long time. So there are several reasons for his retirement. Delayed payments. So Andreev has criticized these delayed payments of the bonuses and the lack of the consistent financial support for training and competition preparation as the main reason why he's going to retire. So he's had financial struggles, of course. Despite receiving some funds, he said that the bureaucratic delays and insufficient resources have been disrespectful and disheartening. Totally agree with. And then he says he has a desire for a new focus, so he plans on prioritizing starting a family and shifting his efforts to supporting younger athletes. I actually saw a video of him at his wedding most recently dancing, and he looked like he was having a great time, so that's nice. He said that he's not going to compete at the World Championships in Bahrain because he basically feels mocked by the system, the unpaid subsidies and bonuses. I mean, it totally makes sense. So his coach, Plamen Bratoychev, who you may recognize as the white-haired guy who's often in red tracksuits, he's been with Karlos before, but not anymore. Plamen emphasized the dedication of the Bulgarian coaches despite all of the limited funding. The Bulgarian Ministry of Sports claims that Andreev received adequate support, including 104,000 leva for training and a $60,000 leva prize for his European title. Okay, so we're talking about $50,000 for training and $30,000 for his title. That's what they claim, but it doesn't seem like that is true. So yeah, it's a shame. I mean, Bozhidar is one of the best Bulgarian weightlifters of recent times. He's, a two-time European champion, and obviously this retirement definitely comes amid all of the financial scandals that are going on in Bulgarian weightlifting, and it's caused by it. I mean, I wonder if he could get picked up by another country. I mean, he's still good, he's still young, he's clearly able to win medals. It's just a financial thing. I even read that he'd been sleeping in the gym for the last year because he'd had no money from the government. Really tough stuff. Yeah, really, really tough. Anyway, the final thing that we want to talk about is the fact that, I don't know if you saw the news, Max Lang, German weightlifter, used to be a 77 when I first started watching him back in 2014, went up to 81, down to 73. He has officially announced his retirement, which is really sad, but he was a phenomenal weightlifter. He gave everything to the sport. I'm going to let him, I feel like he deserves the space to announce his own retirement. So let's end with this sort of minute of Max Lang saying goodbye to the sport that he loves. I'll see you guys in Bahrain for the World Championships. Starts next week. The link is down below.
Moin, Freunde des gepflegten Leistungssports. Ich lasse jetzt die Katze einfach mal aus dem Sack. Ich beende meine internationale Gewichtheberkarriere. Vielleicht ist dem einen oder anderen aufgefallen, dass meine aktuelle Trainingsleistung als auch meine aktuelle Wettkampfleistung nicht mehr ganz so ins Bild passt. Das liegt daran, dass ich tatsächlich schon mit meinem letzten großen internationalen Wettkampf in Phuket im April diesen Jahres zu mir gesagt habe, international werde ich nicht mehr in den Start gehen. Mit der Entscheidung bin ich sehr glücklich, weil es geht immer weiter und ich habe gemerkt, dass Gewichtheben extrem viel Zeit in Anspruch nimmt, extrem viel Kraft in Anspruch nimmt und ich das nicht mehr möchte. Ja, und witzigerweise, das Bild, was hier liegt, war meine erste Weltmeisterschaft. Meine allererste Weltmeisterschaft und ich war aufgeregt wie die Sau. In Kasachstan war das. Boah, da habe ich mir richtig in die Hosen gemacht. Aber 50 gerissen. Genau 10 Jahre her. Brutal. Und was da alles dazugekommen ist dann noch, wo ich überall war. Ich war zweimal in Thailand, ich war zweimal in Kolumbien, ich war zweimal in den Staaten. Und auch, was ich für Freundschaften gebildet habe über die Zeit. Ja. Geschrubbt wie ein Irrer, Muskelkater gehabt, platt gewesen. Muss dir mal vorstellen, du bist so platt, dass du nicht mal schlafen kannst. Aber auch verdammt viel mitgenommen aus der Zeit. Weil man stellt sich ja zwangsläufig dann die Frage, war es das wert? Ja, weil zum Schluss habe ich 3-mal versucht, zu den Spielen zu kommen, habe es 3-mal nicht gepackt. Da fehlt natürlich jetzt dieser eine Haken. Aber ich denke, alles in allem war es vielleicht jetzt für den Moment nicht das, was ich erreichen wollte. Aber ich habe so ein kleines Bauchgefühl, dass sich das dann irgendwann mal lohnen wird. Wenn noch ein paar Jahre ins Land gegangen sind und man Dinge tut, wo vielleicht andere schon vorher sagen, nee, ist nichts für mich. Und ich war es halt jahrelang gewöhnt, die Extrameile zu gehen. Ich habe alles versucht. Immer. Ein bisschen verrückt ist es trotzdem, weil es ein sehr, sehr langer Lebensinhalt war, den Sport zu machen. Und trotzdem bleibe ich aber dabei, ohne sentimental zu werden. Es war die richtige Entscheidung. Es hat mich sehr gefreut, dass ihr ganz viel hinterher wart, was ich so treibe, mir gefolgt seid. Dürft ihr auch gerne weitermachen. Großes Dankeschön natürlich an meine größten Supporter. Die Bundeswehr, die Deutsche Sporthilfe und auch die Sporthilfe Rheinland-Pfalz. Ohne die jetzt nicht funktioniert. Und ja, einfach danke.